Everyone at the office thought he was just another maintenance guy, gray uniform, janitor's badge, and an old mop in hand. He walked slowly, kept his head down, and barely spoke. People rushed past him without so much as a glance. Some even bumped into him and didn't bother to apologize. But what they didn't know was this. The man they were ignoring was actually the billionaire CEO of the company. He had built the empire from scratch, sleepless nights, brutal competition, and sacrifices no one ever saw. But now, with the company growing bigger than ever, he started to wonder, had his employees lost their values? Did they care only about titles, perks, and promotions? Were they still the kind of people he wanted representing his legacy? So he made a plan, one that no one saw coming. For one full week, he would go undercover, disguised as the janitor who worked the night shift. He'd observe every department, every interaction. No cameras, no assistant, no one but him and the truth. "Let's see who you are when no one's watching," he whispered to himself before walking into the building on a rainy Monday morning. The receptionist barely acknowledged him. A few employees looked confused. Isn't the janitor supposed to come in after hours? But shrugged it off. By noon, he had already been ignored by 5 managers, brushed off by 2 HR reps, and told, "You're in the way," by the head of sales. But he wasn't looking for perfection. He was looking for something different. That's when he saw her, a young woman in the break room, struggling to carry 2 trays of coffee and a stack of reports. He stepped forward to help, but before he could, she looked at him and smiled. "Need a hand?" she asked. He blinked. She wasn't asking for help. She was offering it.
To him.
"No one's ever too important to lend a hand," she added, noticing his hesitation. And with that, she helped him steady the mop bucket, even though it wasn't spilling. He thanked her quietly, hiding his astonishment. Her name tag read, Maya, Junior Analyst. Over the next few days, he kept watching. She held elevator doors open for interns. She stayed after hours to help the receptionist who had fallen behind. She left little notes of encouragement on people's desks. "You're doing great," or "Don't let the stress win today." And most importantly, she always said thank you, even to the janitor no one else saw. But the rest of the office? That was a different story. People pushed past him, talked down to him, and even mocked his slow pace. One executive even muttered, "Why do we hire people like this?" He made a mental note of every name. By Friday, the CEO knew what he had to do. But no one else had a clue what was coming. Monday morning arrived. But this time, the man in the janitor uniform didn't enter the office with his mop. He walked in through the executive elevator, flanked by security, wearing a crisp suit and holding a tablet with a list of names. Maya was sipping her morning coffee when the receptionist suddenly stood up and gasped, "That's Mr. Ryan." Maya turned and dropped her coffee. Everyone froze. The janitor was the CEO? The moment Mr. Ryan entered the building in his tailored suit, silence swept through the open office. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze midway to lips. People who had once scoffed at the quiet janitor now stared in disbelief. The man who had scrubbed the floor outside the boardroom just days ago was now walking past them like a storm cloaked in power. Ryan didn't say a word. Not yet. He headed straight to the top-floor conference room, where the department heads were gathering for their usual Monday sync. But today, there would be no usual. He placed his tablet on the polished oak table and looked each one of them in the eye. "I've spent the past week among you.
Not as your CEO.
Not as a man you shake hands with during quarterly reviews. But as someone invisible. A janitor."
Gasps.
Shifting in seats. Nervous chuckles. Someone even attempted to mutter, "Is this a social experiment or a prank?" But Ryan's face was stone cold. "I was tired of reports and filtered feedback. I wanted to see the truth for myself. How you treat people you believe are beneath you. How you act when no cameras are watching and you think there's no reward for kindness." He paused, scanning their uneasy faces. And what I saw was heartbreaking. The CFO looked pale. The head of HR fumbled with her pen. Even the usually confident marketing lead seemed to shrink under his gaze. Ryan tapped the tablet. Names began to appear on the screen behind him, screenshots of incidents, notes he'd personally taken. One executive was shown laughing when a new intern spilled water, refusing to help her clean it up. Another was caught berating a junior employee for being too slow while delegating his own tasks. A department head had deliberately ignored a cafeteria worker asking for feedback on a food issue. He wasn't just calling out behavior, he had receipts. "You didn't just fail a test," Ryan said slowly. "You revealed who you really are." But then he smiled. There was one exception. He tapped again, and a photo appeared. Maya, holding open the door for a delivery man, her other hand full of folders. In another, she was helping a cleaner fix a broken cart. And in one particularly touching moment, she was shown kneeling beside the janitor, him, handing him a sandwich and saying, "You must be starving." The room was silent. "This young woman," he continued, "treated everyone with respect, not for recognition, not for a raise, but because it's simply who she is." He didn't stop there. Ryan requested Maya be brought to the conference room. She walked in nervously, unaware of what was unfolding. When she saw him, her eyes widened. You're not." "No," he said gently. "I'm not just the janitor. I'm the founder and CEO of this company." A hushed gasp swept through the room. "But what you did for me, you didn't do because of who I was. You did it because of who you are." Maya stood frozen, clearly overwhelmed. "Let me tell you all something." Ryan turned back to the room. "This company was built on values, integrity, humility, and the belief that every person matters. Somewhere along the way, some of you forgot that. You became obsessed with status, with titles, with the hierarchy of success." He turned to Maya. "But Maya reminded me why I started this company in the first place. She reminded me that real leadership isn't about who has the most power. It's about who uplifts others, even when there's nothing to gain." As murmurs spread across the office, more employees started coming to the conference room, drawn by the tension in the air. Some were confused, some ashamed. A few looked angry, even defensive. But one thing was clear, the entire company was about to change. What no one knew yet, however, was that Ryan's reveal was just the beginning. Because Maya hadn't just earned praise. She was about to be handed an opportunity that would make her life unrecognizable. But before that, Ryan had one more surprise for the company. He stood tall and said, "This week, everything changes. Promotions, terminations, restructures. It'll all reflect what I saw with my own eyes. Some of you might not have a desk here tomorrow." Whispers turned to panic. But Ryan wasn't done. He pulled out a sealed envelope and handed it to Maya. She looked at it, confused. "What's this?" "Open it," he said. Her hands trembled as she peeled the seal open. Inside was a letter. She read it silently. Then again. She looked up at him, stunned. "You're offering me a leadership program at Stanford fully funded? And the position in your personal innovation team?" "I'm not offering it," Ryan said. "I'm giving it to you. Effective immediately." She was speechless. "I built this company to recognize and reward those who carry humanity in their work. You're the first in a long time who reminded me why that matters." Her eyes welled up. "And everyone else?" They stood there, some envious, some reflective, and others finally beginning to realize the weight of what had just happened. But the most intense shock was still waiting in the wings. Because this entire test had another layer no one saw coming. A twist that would blow the entire office, and the public, wide open. Just when everyone thought they had seen the full extent of Ryan's plan, just when whispers and wide eyes filled the office corridors, he leaned forward and dropped the final bombshell. "This test wasn't just about watching you in the office," he said slowly, pausing for maximum effect. "It went deeper, much deeper." The room held its breath. Ryan gestured toward the door. A group of unfamiliar faces began walking in, quietly, professionally, carrying clipboards and ID tags. Some employees recognized them. A few gasped. They were private investigators, undercover consultants, and corporate ethicists. Ryan smiled faintly. Over the past 2 months, These individuals have been embedded across our departments.
Cafeteria.
Maintenance. Even our online platforms and HR communication channels. While I pretended to be a janitor, they were collecting the data. Every interaction, every complaint, every red flag was being documented. People began to panic. Phones were being checked. Slack messages, those once private DMs, were suddenly the source of dread. We weren't just watching how you treated me, Ryan continued. We watched how you treated everyone, including those you thought didn't matter. The screen behind him lit up again. This time, it showed more than photos. It showed chat logs, video clips from hallway cams, audio files from meetings, anonymous testimonies from interns and juniors, stories of mistreatment, manipulation, credit theft, and even outright bullying. One manager had been reported by 4 different team members for threatening their bonuses if they didn't work unpaid weekends. Another director was caught stealing an idea from a junior employee during a client presentation, an idea that had led to a 6-figure deal. None of these things had reached Ryan's desk through traditional reporting channels, because the system was broken. But this test had exposed it all. The HR head stammered, We weren't aware of this behavior." "That's exactly the problem," Ryan cut in. "You weren't aware because you stopped listening. You became gatekeepers instead of advocates." Gasps erupted when one last screen flickered on, a recording of a senior executive mocking Ryan himself during a lunch break, completely unaware that the janitor he was laughing about was the very man signing his checks. "And this," Ryan said, "is why I had to go undercover." Everyone in the room felt like the floor beneath them had shifted. The test had seemed simple, an experiment in humility and kindness. But it had been a surgical audit of culture, a deep diagnosis of rot beneath the surface. But that wasn't the only twist. There was another layer, one that would soon make headlines. Turning back to Maya, Ryan said, "Tell them what you do outside work." She looked startled, then whispered, "I run a small community kitchen. It's nothing huge. Just a weekend project I do with my brother." "She feeds over 300 people a month," Ryan said proudly. "On her own dime. No social media glory. No sponsorships. Just quiet compassion." He turned back to the team. "And here's what none of you knew. This entire test, this undercover operation, wasn't just for the company. It's part of a larger initiative I've been planning for over a year. A global foundation. One that will fund, empower, and promote real changemakers. People who don't just work well, but live well. People with heart." He pointed to Maya again. "She's the first person I'm officially naming as a fellow of the New Core Foundation. She will receive a $500,000 grant to scale her kitchen project, mentorship from global leaders, and a seat on our advisory panel for social impact." The room burst into hushed awe. But he wasn't done. "I'll also be matching her salary times 10, paid out over 5 years, if she continues her efforts and mentors 5 others within this company to start their own community impact projects." Maya covered her mouth, trying not to cry. This wasn't just a reward. It was a legacy opportunity. As news of this spread like wildfire through the office, phones began buzzing. Emails were flying. Employees from every floor started pouring into the large atrium below, staring up at the glass conference room like it was a courtroom drama unfolding live. Then came the final twist, one that no one could have seen coming. Ryan walked to the edge of the glass wall and looked down at the hundreds now gathered. "I'm streaming this announcement company-wide, and I'm going to be completely transparent." He pressed a button. All screens in the office lit up with a live video feed of Ryan speaking. "I've sold 20% of my shares. And I've redirected those funds to launch a company-wide equity and kindness incentive program. For every verified act of service, mentorship, or positive social impact, documented and peer-reviewed, you'll earn bonus points. These won't just buy you lunch or vacation time." He paused. "They'll buy you stock, real shares, ownership in this company." The room erupted in stunned silence. "I'm betting the future of this company on goodness. On the belief that people can still surprise you if you give them the chance to show who they are when no one's watching."
It was no longer about Maya.
Or Ryan. It was about everyone now. But deep down, as people began to clap and cheer, some out of awe, some out of hope, and some simply relieved they hadn't been exposed, there was a silent realization sweeping through the company. This wasn't just a test. It was a mirror. And everyone was forced to look into it and ask, what did I just see in myself? The wave of emotion that swept through the building in the minutes after Ryan's announcement was indescribable. Some employees stood frozen, eyes wide and jaws slack, trying to process what had just happened. Others applauded, louder and louder, until the atrium below echoed with cheers. But the celebration was short-lived. Ryan raised his hand once more. His voice returned to the speakers. I know many of you are feeling proud right now. But before you get comfortable, let me be clear. This next phase will not be easy. The crowd fell silent again. There will be changes. Structural, cultural, and operational. Those who thrived in the old system, the ones who climbed by stepping on others, will find this new model uncomfortable. He turned to the screen, where the chat logs and video clips still lingered like digital ghosts. Some of the names involved in toxic behavior are in this room, he said bluntly. And I won't tolerate a single excuse. He looked at the HR director. Suspensions are being issued, effective immediately. Investigations are underway. There will be terminations. As if on cue, emails began dinging into inboxes. Security personnel, discreet but firm, walked into the room and escorted two senior executives out without a word. No one dared stop them. But Ryan wasn't finished. Let me tell you something that's been weighing on me for years, he said, softer now, more personal. I built this company from scratch. Not for profit, not for recognition, but for purpose. Somewhere along the way, we got lost. We became about margins instead of meaning, efficiency instead of empathy. His voice cracked just slightly. The mask of the invincible billionaire slipped for a moment. I almost sold the company last year. I was done. Tired. Disappointed. But then, something changed. He turned to Mayo again. That day in the rain, when I dropped my keys and you helped me up without knowing who I was, you reminded me why I started this in the first place. You didn't just help me. You reminded me that this company still had good people. The entire room now looked at Maya not just with respect, but with something deeper. Hope. That was the turning point.
People began to reflect.
Interns who'd been ignored suddenly found themselves being asked about their ideas. Middle managers started emailing anonymous apology notes to junior staff. Cafeteria workers were hugged. Even the cleaning staff, many of whom had been invisible for years, were approached with genuine thank yous. A culture was changing in real time. And then one last twist. Ryan revealed that this test wasn't exclusive to this office alone. I ran the same test in 3 of our international branches, he announced. Different disguise. Different setup. Same goal. He clicked the remote again, and live footage from offices in Singapore, Berlin, and Cape Town flashed across the screen. In each, someone was being recognized. Someone humble.
Kind.
Unassuming. Someone who had helped a stranger when it didn't benefit them. These people will also be granted fellowships under the new core foundation. Together, we're forming a council. One that will oversee ethical transformation, not just in this company, but in others that want to adopt this model. That's when reality truly hit. This wasn't a publicity stunt. It wasn't a motivational one-off. It was a revolution starting from the inside out. And it came with real-world consequences. The press caught wind of the event by evening. Headlines exploded. Billionaire CEO goes undercover to expose corporate culture, fires executives on the spot. Janitor was CEO all along. Employee rewarded with $500,000 surprise. New core model. Could this be the future of corporate ethics? Ryan didn't care about the media frenzy. He was too busy rolling out the next phase, personally. Each department was asked to nominate unsung heroes. People who quietly made a difference. Every quarter, one would receive a bonus, a mentorship opportunity, and a platform to scale their impact beyond office walls. More than that, Ryan set up an anonymous hotline, not just for complaints, but for acts of kindness. Anyone caught doing something selfless could be nominated by peers. It flipped the reward system on its head. People were now looking for opportunities to uplift others. The effect? Productivity soared. Turnover dropped. And clients began noticing a change in energy, less robotic, more human. Employees stayed late not out of fear, but passion. Meetings turned from power plays into real conversations. Even board members, at first skeptical, saw that this human-first approach was generating stronger, more sustainable returns. But the greatest impact wasn't in profits or PR. It was in the hearts of the people, especially those like Maya, who now spent her evenings helping expand her kitchen project using new volunteers from the company itself. One night, she got a message from a junior analyst in another department. "You don't know me, but I used to be invisible here. After seeing what you did, I started volunteering too.
Just wanted to say thank you for inspiring me. You changed more than a company.
You changed me." That was the moment Maya realized this wasn't just about what Ryan did. It was about what he unlocked in others. A spark. A belief that being good wasn't just noble, it was powerful. And that's when the climax of this story became more than a dramatic moment. It became a movement. Weeks passed. The buzz that once filled the office had now matured into something deeper, an unspoken code of kindness. People walked taller, spoke softer, and listened more. Ryan no longer walked around in disguise. He didn't need to. His presence didn't intimidate anymore. It inspired. When he entered a room, conversations didn't halt, they evolved. Ideas flowed freely, and voices once silenced now had seats at the table. And Maya? She didn't stop with the food pantry. With the resources Ryan provided and the partnerships that came after, she founded the Second Step Project, a nonprofit that helped employees in low-wage roles access education, emergency housing, and emotional support. It became so successful that other companies began asking to implement similar programs. Ryan eventually stepped down as CEO, not out of defeat, but fulfillment. He passed the reins to a leadership council that wasn't made up of just MBAs and board veterans, but of everyday employees, nurtured, mentored, and now fully empowered. People like Maya, the janitor turned humanitarian. Like Tomas, the IT guy who once quietly donated his bonus to a struggling coworker. Like Priya, the cafeteria supervisor who taught her staff leadership skills on her own time. He chose people who led with heart. In one of his final town halls, Ryan stood before the company and left them with a question. We always ask how we can do more, but maybe the better question is, how can we care more?
He paused.
Because when we care more, we automatically do better for our work, our people, and our world. The applause that followed wasn't thunderous, it was warm, genuine, like the final page of a book that left you different than when you started. But now, here's the part where you come in. Because this isn't just a feel-good story to scroll past. It's a mirror. Look around your workplace, your school, your community. Who are the people you walk past every day without noticing? Who are the ones helping others when no one's watching? And more importantly, if a stranger needed help, would you stop? Or would you walk away, thinking there's someone else's problem? Ryan didn't become a billionaire by accident. He studied people. And what he found was this. True character isn't revealed when someone's watching. It's revealed when you think no one is. So ask yourself, what would you have done if you were in Maya's shoes? Would you have stopped in the rain? Helped a man with no umbrella? Given your kindness with no expectation? Or would you have rushed on by? Too busy to care? And here's the twist. You never really know who's watching. So the next time you think your kindness doesn't matter, think again. The next time you think you're invisible, remember Maya. The next time you doubt the ripple effect of a good deed, remember Ryan. Now it's your turn. A comment below. What would you have done if you were tested like this? Tag someone who's inspired you with their quiet acts of kindness. And share the story, because the world doesn't need more billionaires. It needs more people who act like Maya when no one's watching. Because you never know. The next person you help could be the one who changes your life.